Hear me out. Have you ever had a group project and within that group, you just couldn't make a good decision? Or worse, the group made a terrible one. I don't get it. Why do some groups and teams collaborate brilliantly while others they fall apart? Well, that is the question that functional perspective on group decision making tries to answer. And as we enter the next mini series on group communication, that is our focus for this episode. Welcome back to Communication Campus. All right, so I am your host, Dr. Malynnda Stewart, and today we are diving in to functional perspective of group decision making, developed by Randy Hirokawa and Dennis Gouran. Now, this theory explains how communication functions within a group to produce high-quality decisions. And, also what goes wrong when key communication steps are missing. Now, as always, we have to think about what are the core assumptions made by this theory. And the functional perspective assumes first that groups are like problem-solving systems, that they identify the problems, they immediately start thinking about how we solve it, and we move forward. It also assumes that communication is the process that connects information, ideas, and decisions. Third, the perspective assumes that good decisions are the result from following certain communication functions. They're not just having smart people, but you can have all the smart people in the world, and I'm sure we have seen this. But if you don't have good communication functions, it's still going to fall apart. In other words, effective communication, according to this theory, is what makes or breaks group decision making. That's what we start from. So, according to the theorists, effective group decision making requires completing 4 key functions. First is the problem analysis function. And this is where we're clearly defining and understanding the problem. So, for example, before deciding how to increase student retention, a committee must identify why students are leaving. So we have to have that why before we can move anywhere else. Second, we need to set clear criteria for goals. Goal setting. So, for example, our goal is to raise retention by 10% within the 2 years. Now, this doesn't really get into this, but it's really important to remember that a good goal, a SMART goal, if you've heard from other classes, is that it needs to be specific, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be attainable, it needs to be realistic, and it needs to be time-bound. So here we have this goal that our goal is to raise retention, so that's specific, by 10%. That's attainable and realistic within 2 years. Okay, great. What are we measuring? We're measuring the retention rate and we're checking to see if it's above that 10%. So this is a good goal. So before we start just creating goals willy-nilly, we need to make sure that we are making SMART goals. But we need to have goals set. All right, number 3, we're going to have identification of alternatives. We need to generate multiple possible solutions. So, for example, offering mentor programs, increasing financial aid, or redesigning first-year courses as a way of keeping those freshmen there, retaining those students. So we're not going to put all of our eggs in one basket. We're going to come up with multiple solutions that might work. Fourth, we're going to do an evaluation of positive and negative characteristics. We're going to weigh the highs and the lows, the pros and the cons for each of those options based on the criteria that we've already set. How are we going to know if this is successful? What are we actually able to measure? What things might work best? Or maybe it's not going to be the greatest. I call this the reality testing phase. Like, let's actually look at what this would look like, how it would work. And then we make the decision of what it is that we're going to choose to invoke, to put forward. Now, groups that skip or rush through these steps make poor decisions. And they're not making these bad decisions because they're unmotivated. They're making these bad decisions because they've missed the functionality that is essential part of the process. An aspect of the functional perspective that we have to keep in mind is that not all communication is equal. Some talk helps move a conversation forward and moves a group forward, but other talk that is happening is going to distract or completely derail the group. We've seen this in class projects. We've seen this even in small group discussions. You have some people who have clearly not done the reading. I know who you are. You know who you are. And so you just talk about things so that you are seen talking, but what are you actually offering? Are you being critical of what the reading even talked about? Or did you read just a little bit and then you're talking about your personal examples and not really adding to? So we might have promotive communication. And this is communication that moves the group towards completing its function. So those are going to be the conversations with people that they've done their reading, they understand the situation, the problem, and they're really focusing on promoting what we're talking about, moving it forward. We have disruptive communication. This is going to be those people that didn't quite do the reading, but they want to be seen and be heard and feel like they're contributing something. This more times than not diverts or hinders the progress because they're not thinking about how we move it forward. They're not really thinking on a clear basis of what the whole problem is because they haven't done the homework. Then we have counteractive communication. And this is where we're refocusing the group when we get off track. Hey, we all get off track. We all chase squirrels. We all eventually start sharing stories, and that's a different theory entirely, about things that related to the problem. Maybe we're going to share the stories of experiences that we've had when we've had to deal with a similar problem. And that can actually be promotive communication. What are the things that we've seen? What are the experiences that we've had in the past? And that can be great. But eventually we need someone to bring us back and counteract that conversation and refocus us to get us back to where we need to be going. The healthiest groups balance these types of communication, ensuring that they keep revisiting these key functions, especially when it's needed. The functional perspective is widely used in organizational decision making. Academic communities use it, and collaborative teams use it. And they do this because it reminds us that group success isn't about luck or leadership or even charisma. It's about communication and communication quality. When groups communicate functionally, they make better, more sustainable decisions. All right, let's sum this up. We know that groups are problem-solving systems, that effective communication completes 4 functional requisites, that promotive, disruptive, and counteractive talk all play roles in our groups. Group decisions depend on the process, not just the people. All right, thank you for joining me in this episode of Communication Campus. I am your host, Dr. Malynnda Stewart. And in our next session, we will explore yet another major theory in communication, specifically looking at group communication. Until then, remember, great decisions start with great conversations. So please keep communicating.